Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today, I'm joined by my co-host who is missing more than one body part, but we're not going to tell you which, Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about Jennifer's body's the other one. God, I got them crossed in my head. Lisa Frankenstein. Movie directed by Zelda Williams and written by Diablo Cody and starring both Cole Sprouse and Kathryn Newton.
Yes.
Tanner, I've been really excited about this movie. We've been watching the trailer a bunch. It's been a lot of fun seeing that trailer. But we finally got our eyes and our peepers on to Lisa Frankenstein itself. How do you feel about that movie?
Lisa Frankenstein is a movie that when it first started, when we were in the opening minutes of it, I'm like, oh man, I'm not really enjoying this. I feel like the mood is kind of off here. I'm not really sure if the actors are really clicking with the material. But as it went on, I found myself really enjoying it. We saw it with a semi-full theater. Our friends were there as well. And honestly, we were having a pretty good time. We were laughing at quite a few of the jokes. I feel like it is still somewhat imperfect. I don't think it gets the most ideal execution of the material. But I had a good time with it. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I gotta say I didn't really have a good time, and I did not have the benefit of going with a group of rowdy fellas. It was actually pretty lonely in there.
Yeah.
But I found it to be pretty lackluster. I think the concepts I'm very sold on. The style I'm very sold on. The actors I'm very sold on. But I think the material is not really there. I think that the script and the dialogue is very hit or miss, and I think that the filmmaking leaves a lot to be desired, and it feels very amateurish. And this is a feature debut by Zelda Williams, but I felt so much of the editing and sound choices and cinematography to be so simple that I was just like, you're not really doing anything with this. Yeah. And it doesn't, it wants to be a movie that is clever, has bite, is a satire, has style, has pizzazz in its ideas, but I feel that there isn't an experienced enough edge behind it in terms of directing that would make all those elements actually come together. And I also think that the material that they're working with from Diablo Cody's writing is not there. I think that the dialogue doesn't work. I think some of the characters don't make a lot of sense.
Sure.
I just found it to be lackluster.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see where you're coming from with a few of those complaints there. I feel them to a certain extent too, and obviously, I think what this might come down to is just a difference of experience. Is that you saw this in a were you the only one in the theater?
No, there was like 5 or 6 other people.
Okay, but yeah, there were quite a few couples in there with us. This is sort of like a pseudo Valentine's Day kind of film with its release date and everything. So yeah, quite a few people were having a good time. Though I'd be lying if I said that some of the jokes didn't fall flat. No laughs in the theater there. And the scripting stuff, the direction stuff, I totally see where you're coming from. Like I said, I think it is a less than ideal execution of the material.
I agree with that.
The material there, I see a lot of what they're going for.
Yeah.
Is that they're going for something that's very very Heathers in a way. Obviously there's a Diablo Cody joint. There's a lot of like Jennifer's body DNA in this thing. And it's obviously a send up of like 80s teen comedies, but like a modern retrospective on what those 80s teen comedies are, and sort of flipping the script on those a little bit. I can totally see a lot of the ideas present in Lisa Frankenstein, and some of them are done well, and some of them actually I think grew on me quite a bit over the runtime of this film.
Nailed down on any of that?
I mean, for example, I want to talk about Kathryn Newton and this whole sort of the goth caricature that she is embodying. In the first 15 to 20 minutes, I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
I feel like she's very,
she's annoyingly meek in that first part of the movie.
It's what it is, and I'm like, I don't know if she can really pull this off. Like, I understand what this is supposed to be, and she isn't really doing it for me. But when we introduce Cole Sprouse, who's credited as the creature, but I'm pretty sure his tombstone said Frankie on it.
Sure.
Or Francis.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. When he's introduced...
Yeah, that's the kind of thing this movie would do.
Exactly. When he's introduced and Kathryn Newton opens up, the character of Lisa opens up, I'm like, okay, we've settled into it in a much better groove with this character.
Absolutely. I think that is the best part of the movie is Kathryn Newton giving this material the best that she can.
Mm-hmm.
She's selling the moments and doing things that are exaggerated and chewing scenery and winking and chewing gum, and it absolutely exudes personality, and her performance is clearly the best part of this. I think without a single shadow of a doubt. I think that I don't necessarily buy the transformation of meek Lisa into Lisa Frankenstein.
It happens quite suddenly.
So quickly.
Yes. Basically overnight.
Not even overnight, within one cut, because it really is when Francis, if we're going to call him that, gives her a more risque dress, and then she just goes to school in it, and suddenly she's much more cockier and much more confident. And maybe that's just a thing of like, oh, she just needed one thing to push her over, but she's so meek in that first part. It's like, this is because this is a short movie and does not have the time to flesh out that character growth. And also, we get it. We know that she's changing. Like, it feels like the kind of thing that in a more interesting and thought out movie would have a sequence there. But this movie is more going for ripping on the teen comedy element. So it's like, you get it. You know what happens, so we don't have to show it. The part that might take a little bit more writing and nuance for the character. But absolutely, once she gets there, it's what works. Is her selling these things and frankly outshining almost everyone else in the cast.
And honestly, with the writing and stuff, since we touched on that, like I don't want to be too hasty and say like this is a bad script from Diablo Cody, because we've seen great scripts in the past. I mean, Juno and Jennifer's Body, these are great works that sort of like do serve as things that are a bit, not provocative, but undercut the typical Hollywood sort of formula in terms of writing and whatnot. Jennifer's Body obviously being something quite like this, a supernatural sort of spin on things that it isn't exactly being received glowingly by critics, let's say. But by that metric, like I said, I don't want to say Diablo Cody fucked up this script or anything like that. I think it might be an editing thing, and again, it might be a direction thing. Again, I don't want to be too cruel towards Zelda Williams, but it is a debut feature from her. Excuse me, and you can feel some of the like maybe timidness from a creative standpoint. Though there is some creative force to be found here, I think. In the direction.
I think the problem is it's very hard to nail down which issue, what element is the issue, because I do feel that each element doesn't bring its A game. And I think that a larger thing that paints both the direction and the screenplay in a weaker light is that this is not a rated R movie. This is a PG-13, very much intended for teens movie. And so even though this film wants to be raunchy and wants to be gory, it cannot do those things fully. And so it's hinting at those things. But it doesn't... I feel like the movie, because of its rating, doesn't allow its own themes that it wants to try to come into full fruition. This is not showing a cut-off penis on screen.
I don't know.
This is not showing more sex stuff on screen. This is saying those things and then cutting away.
Yeah.
And I found that to be like, I feel like they wanted to show those things and then just couldn't.
Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily needed to see like a penis flying through the air. I think I'm okay with sort of the the more cutesy attitude this thing might take towards it, instead of seeing like a bloody stump spraying blood everywhere or whatever, or seeing a character be actually beheaded on screen or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it is going for a sort of like Heather's sort of comic over the top kind of thing to it, where we have like the evil stepmother and stuff like that, and like the handsy teenage boy who gets his comeuppance. One thing that I found interesting about this film though is the presence of the stepsister character.
Sure. Yeah, great character. Great performance.
Yeah, who I found quite interesting as a character, because typically you would see like
the actress Lisa Soberano.
Yeah, who plays
Taffy.
Taffy, that's right. Her name's Taffy.
Yeah. Her license plate says Laffy T on it.
That's right. But yeah, what's interesting about it is that typically in a film like this, especially like an 80s film, you might see like the bitchy stepsister or whatever who's mean to our main character all the time. And that's not what Taffy is. Yeah. She's very nice, she's very supportive, and ultimately, like when a moment of sort of undercutting Lisa or sort of going behind her back does arrive, it feels quite innocent on her part.
No, totally.
Yeah,
and I think that is the part where the screenplay for me feels its most subversive, and it is in its least traditionally subversive place, which is just writing an endearing character with a good performance that is a good person. And as you're saying, that's not what that stereotype of what that role is, and usually in these movies. But I feel like it is a little bit at odds with the rest of the movie that does not care that it is super tropey.
Sure,
the rest of the movie is leaning into, okay, we're gonna hit the party beat, we're gonna hit the going to school beat, we're gonna hit the murder beat, we're gonna do these things. It's gonna be teen rom-com, all that. And it doesn't care necessarily to spice or subvert those ideas. It's just doing them again with a Tim Burton, light Tim Burton.
It's very Tim Burton-y as well.
It's not very. It wants to be.
Yeah, I feel the presence of Tim Burton influences here, is what I should say, I guess.
Yeah.
What else about this film? I did find it quite funny, as I said. You know, there was a good rounds of laughs going around the theater. And I think that quite a bit of it actually came from the supporting cast. We haven't talked about Cole Sprouse either. His presence as the creature, as Francis. I can see, I don't know your feelings on this, but like I can see it for some people maybe getting old. But I find, you know, he finds a way to keep it fresh. The character also sort of evolves, I guess you could say, as a physical presence where he's less shambly and becomes more of a regular looking guy, regular feeling guy. And even his physical comic timing, I think, gets a place to shine as the film progresses too. Yeah,
no, I think he's good. I think my only criticism with that is I think that it's too over the top at the beginning with his insanely herky jerky movements. It's like you're moving like almost out of the frame at certain points, and it's just like I feel that the character would have felt a little bit more grounded, and I think especially in one of the more tropey moments and scenes that I felt was kind of underwritten, which is when they meet and he sort of breaks into her house and chasing around. Okay, that's funny. Chasing around. But then like on a dime, she's okay with it. And his herky jerky moments and the fact that she doesn't like come to terms with this in like a reasonable
it's a cut that you feel like was there a scene cut out here? Was there a character moment where like we got to shorten this down? There's quite a few moments like that in the film, I would say.
And I think that is a symptom of one of my biggest criticisms of this movie, which is the editing. I think that the editing honestly is the reason why I didn't find this to be a funny movie. I thought that it wanted to be clever, but the editing I think does not let itself to comedic timing. I was watching the opening minutes of the movie and I'm like, wow, they do not know how to edit for comedic timing.
I totally feel that.
The fact is that there are lots of dialogue jokes and physical comedy jokes that are set up and then show up on screen. But the film watching brain has been trained, and I think by better produced films, to expect a certain cadence of editing to match that comedic timing, sound effects, score, that this movie, I think, lacks the mastery of. The score is very, like, not foregrounded. Like, there are moments where just no music at all happens.
I have a question for you. Was your screening also quiet?
A very quiet movie.
Yeah, I agree. Okay,
weirdly quiet movie.
I didn't know if it was just us, just our screening or whatever, but like the sound mixing is pretty low.
I've heard that mentioned in reviews as well. Yeah, but that isn't just the sound mixing overall. It's the fact that there is score in this movie, but not in certain moments.
It's also like a needle drop heavy.
Of dead air for comedic moments because they don't want to overshine it with a comedic song or whatever. So they tell the joke, nothing happens with the score, nothing happens with the soundtrack, and then we hang on that shot for too many frames so that it just kind of dissipates. Then we cut to someone else just like kind of not really reacting because it's a very dry humor movie where like people aren't like laughing at each other. This is just like that was awkward kind of thing.
I mean, I don't know if I would call it a dry humor. It's just that it's just sort of, offbeat. I would say more that like none of there's no real like straight man. Never mind. There is.
Yeah, the dad.
The dad is the straight man. Who's also the dad in Stranger Things. So he's been typecast as like 80s oblivious dad, which is pretty good. But to that point, I think there are jokes that are hindered by what you're saying. The editing is also something that I felt was like, okay, we need to operate at a bit more of a clip in our editing here.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think there are some scenes in the film that rely more on just keeping a steady shot, not having to rely on editing, where our actors are just delivering lines. Where I think more the
Sure.
comedy shined through more.
Sure.
A scene that comes to mind is when Lisa sort of introduces Francis or the creature to the concept of a vibrator.
Mm-hmm.
Like that scene, I
Yeah.
felt was like, okay, it's really fun, and Kathryn Newton's sort of like doing this delivery where she's like, people actually don't use this for back massaging. Sometimes they use it for something else.
And it is a testament to Kathryn Newton that her physical performance and comedic timing does overcome that in places.
Mhm.
The fact that the movie is not landing in terms of the editing and sound for helping along its comedic moments, it is impressive that Kathryn Newton, in her over-dramatic nature and flamboyant energy, can still land those jokes. I mean, I think it's good.
When she's doing the thing where she's like tipping down her sunglasses at school, I'm like, she's cool. She's really living it up as this character.
Totally.
I'm glad she's having a great time because, again, like I said, I was not sold in like the first 15-20 minutes of this. I was like, oh, this is looking a little rocky, looking a little rough. But I think she really comes into her own, and in a lot of regards, I feel the film comes into its own as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, still feel a lot of the same issues you have with it. I think it might purely come down to an experiential thing with it.
Yeah.
And as our friend of the show, Abram Buner, said, as we were driving back from the theater, he's like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I feel like it's also kind of just leaving my mind as the more distance I get from it.
And I think that to me that is a symptom of the characters not being like super interesting, well written. It is a surface level play on Frankenstein tropes, but it doesn't commit to those. I think that it being PG-13 sort of undercuts what otherwise might be something that is more biting, is more raunchy, is able to commit to those elements a little bit more of it being a teen and also monster drama comedy. I think a lot of the creative choices of this movie make it miss the potential mark that I think I saw a lot of in the trailer. I think the trailer is better than the movie.
Sure.
I think a lot of the best moments are in the trailer, but I also think that because it is more snappily edited and intercut and the music is hitting at the right time, that really sold me on this movie being fast and poppy and colorful and full of energy. And it is some of those things, but it is certainly not all of them. And there are stretches of the movie where they're just kind of going about their life and there's not really much music going on in the background and the editing's on too long. I'm like, it's not what I was sold on in the trailer. And I also think that it largely lacks like interesting imagery. Yeah. I think there are a few, but and really the only thing that really comes to mind is the idea of using a tanning bed as a Frankenstein.
We're sort of splicing
life.
We're splicing our like 1930s black and white horror with our late 80s teen culture, stuff like that, and that's a lot of what the concept of the film relies on. And again, I think some of it works. As Cole Sprouse sort of evolves his appearance, I'm like, I can see this guy as kind of like an emo 80s heartthrob kind of guy.
Sure, no, absolutely.
The design of the character is quite good,
no,
and the costume design is great and everything. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like a cutesy little Valentine's Day movie, there's not a lot of other options for you out in theaters right now. So
Anyone But You is being re-released.
That's true. Go see Anyone But You, but if you've seen that already, go see Lisa Frankenstein.
No, yeah, and it's a movie that I want to be supported. I want Zelda Williams to get a better shot to develop her creative voice and experience as a director. I don't want Diablo Cody to stop working. I think that this was a great career moment for both of our lead actors. But I just wish that it had sold itself better to me. I think there's just so many choices that are made that I'm like, you missed the mark. You went the way I'm like,
I get that.
It's just it's unfortunate. What do you give it for a score, Tanner?
6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay, I'm gonna go. I think this is a below average film, and I think I'm saying that just out of disappointment. I thought this was gonna be like a 9 out of 10 for me.
Oh wow!
Watching that trailer, I'm like, dude. I love monster movies. I love comedies. Kathryn Newton looks like she's selling it. There's this neon pastiche to it, but I was severely disappointed by walking. I'm like, yeah, wasn't that funny?
Setting your sights a little bit too high, Tucker. You're hoisted by your own petard.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go 4.5 out of 10.
Okay,
it's below average, but I feel like it could be a movie that grows on me.
Sure.
And maybe a rewatch would allow me to like be more settled into what the actual feature film tone and pacing of Lisa Frankenstein. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. We will see you guys from Madam Web.
Oh, yes. And listen to me here, sonny boy. You ain't goated and you never will be. Your daddy weren't goated and you weren't goated. Nor was his granddaddy before him then.
None of your family ever reached goat status. You can give 10 generations of your family, none of them will be goats.
None of them be goated, no way, no how. You're never gonna make it out of here. You're never gonna make it to ranked. Listen to me, McFly. You're not goated, just like your father. Oh God. It's your kids, Marty! Something's gotta be done about your kids! They're not goated, Marty! They don't have the sauce, Marty!
Your father didn't have the sauce, and you don't have the sauce, McFly.
A whole family of scrubs.
Sauceless cringe lords.
Yeah.
God, we should make the Back to the Future remake.
Yeah, we really should. We really should.
Holy shit.